Today's module is called Stress Resilience. Understanding the stress response and the relationship it has to disease and disorders is the first step to stress management. So first we're going to talk about what is stress. The stress response readies your body to deal with any perceived challenge effectively and efficiently. This response readies the body for a vigorous muscular activity of the fight or flight response. The reaction begins when a real or imagined threat to your equilibrium is perceived. Any disturbance perceived serves as an alarm signal. When you're in the alarm state, fight or flight, as it's often called, the pupils of your eyes widen so that you can see better. Your muscles tense so that you can jump, run, or struggle with maximum strength. Your heart pumps faster, and your breathing quickens to bring more oxygen to the muscles so they can burn the fuel needed for action. The liver pours out the needed fuel, glucose, from its stored supply, and the fat cells release fatty acid as an alternative fuel. The blood vessels of the muscles expand to feed the muscles more effectively, while the gastrointestinal tract constricts. Digestion's a pretty low priority process in the time of danger, therefore it shuts down. Less blood flows to the kidneys, conserving fluid, and less blood flows to the skin in order to minimize blood loss in case of a wound. Immune cell production is also a low priority during an alarm state. Bears, in the moment, are more threatening than germs. The responses are surface responses created by several chemicals released in the body. One of these chemicals is adrenaline, which prepares the body for rapid use of energy and physical movement. The adrenal glands release two hormones we know as cortisol and cortisone. The purpose of these hormones is to generate glucose for energy by breaking down proteins and fatty acids. Stress itself is not bad. In fact, some levels of stress is necessary to keep your body fit. There are actually two kinds of distress. Distress results when you decide a situation is threatening to you or to someone or something that is important to you. Once you decide something is threatening and you need to respond, your body chemicals prepare you for the emergency. On the other hand, the stress response may be turned on during positive events also. This is called eustress or good stress. Eustress happens at Christmas time or for family reunions. The events are not necessarily threatening, but their challenges demands extra effort. There are other factors that interact with stress to increase or decrease stress's effects. Our genetics, for example, the original level of our hormones is set by genetics. and other body chemicals, also set by genetics, interact with our stress level. More importantly is our diet, that which we put into our bodies. Do we give our bodies healthy food from which it can get nutrients it needs? Do we put things in that increases the body's stress, such as alcohol, drugs, smoke, pollution, chemically filled water, and medication? So let's turn to the effects of stress. So if stress is not good or bad, what's the big fuss over stress? It's the amount of stress that is a big deal. Often, it is not the big events that cause the problem. It is the accumulation of a lot of hassles over time. Researchers and doctors that I've talked to have estimated that somewhere between 70 and 95% of all illness is stress-related. Stress alone does not cause illness. How much stress and how a person reacts to the stress does. Your personality, your unique way of viewing your situation or the world will determine what impact stress has on you. Large amounts of stress or prolonged stress can have a devastating effect on the body. While cortisol is a necessary component in the body, when stress is prolonged, the suppression of the immune system by cortisol can be devastating. Increased cortisol can cause excess amounts of cholesterol in the blood, leading to artery plaque buildup and hypertension, as well as coronary heart disease. Another hormone released in response to stress, thyroxine, functions to create a prolonged increase in overall body activity. This increases the workload on the heart muscle, increases gastrointestinal activity, and at times leads to brain excitement, which is associated with anxiety attacks and insomnia. Our bodies have a passing gear. We call it the fight or flight response. Unfortunately, the metabolic and physiological changes which are deemed essential for human movement in the event of an attack or pursuit or challenges are quite ineffective when dealing with events or situations that threaten the ego, such as receiving a parking ticket or standing in a long line at the grocery store. Yet, the body responds identically to all types of perceived threats. When the immune system is operating normally, it is said to be precisely regulated. However, when the immune system is not working as intended, keeping chemicals and hormones in balance, the result is immunological overreaction, underreaction, or perhaps both. In any case, disease and or illness are certain. Psychological stress throws this precisely regulated mechanism out of balance. Stress is the catalyst that exaggerates the direction in which your immune system is headed, triggering an over or under reaction. Note that you can have an allergic reaction, which is an overreaction, and a cold, which is an underreaction of the immune system at the same time because they're produced by different aspects of the immune system. The first step in the healing process is understanding how the psychological system works. In addition to the above understanding, it is important to know that there are 3 stages to the stress response. Each stage has a progressively more severe consequence. First, there is an alarm stage, which is the immediate response to stress as I described in the beginning of my presentation today. Next, you move to a resistance stage where your body is trying to recover. And finally, if the resistance stage is prolonged, you end up in an exhaustion stage where the body can no longer fight back. It's out of resources. Let's look at the alarm stage for just a moment. It's the immediate response. Some of the symptoms that you can receive from the alarm stage there we go, are these. Stress can cause tension headaches, jaw pain, muscle aches and pains, back pain, and interestingly, grinding teeth. Alarm stage stress is also responsible for migraine headaches, dizziness, difficulty in breathing, heartburn, nausea, hives, rapid heartbeat, chest pain, diarrhea, constipation, and sexual problems. Stress can also result in anxiety, moodiness, depression, forgetfulness, frequent crying, fearfulness, nervous habits, sleeping problems, inability to concentrate, and a wide variety of other behavioral problems. It can cause you to be distracted and have upset stomachs. Now, as we move from the alarm stage, as stress continues, we move into the resistance stage. After the initial shock of a stressful event and having a fight or flight response, the body begins to repair itself. It releases a lower amount of cortisol, and your heart rate and blood pressure begin to normalize. Although your body enters this recovery phase, it remains on high alert for a while. If you overcome stress and the situation is no longer an issue, your body continues to repair itself until your hormone levels, heart rate, and blood pressure reach a pre-stress state. Some stressful situations continue for extended periods of time. If you don't resolve the stress and your body remains on high alert, it eventually adapts and learns how to live with a higher stress level. In this stage, the body goes through changes that you're unaware of in an attempt to cope with the high levels of stress. Your body continues to secrete the stress hormones, and your blood pressure remains elevated. You may think you're managing stress well, but your body's physical response tells a different story. If the resistance stage continues for too long of a period without pauses to offset the effects of stress, this can lead to the exhaustion stage. But first, let's look at some of the effects of of the resistance stage. Allergies, sore throats, sleep disorders, high blood pressure, infections, herpes, arthritis, and lupus. Now let's move on to the exhaustion stage. As a result of prolonged or chronic stress, your body becomes drained of resources to the point that it can no longer resist illnesses. This is when we see angina, heart disease, heart attacks, strokes, and cancer, or other long-term illnesses. So now we know some of the effects of stress. Let's move on to what we would call stress resilience. How do we deal with this stress? And for me, there are 3 levels of stress resilience. The first level is relief. And relief means, as it says, relieving the stress after you get it so that it has a minimal effect on your physical and emotional health. The next level is reduction or management of stress. And that means that you organize your life and the way you interact with others to minimize the amount of stress you encounter. The final level of stress resilience is called elimination. And this is accomplished by how you look at your world. It's about your attitude. So let's first look at some ways that we can find relief from stress. Deep breathing. Deep diaphragmatic breathing is one of the easiest ways to relieve stress. Stretching also works to relieve stress because it relieves the tension in your muscles. Yoga is another stress relief. In fact, yoga does both of the previously mentioned. It creates good deep breathing and it creates stretching. There's another technique called progressive muscle relaxation, in which you go muscle by muscle, tensing and relaxing each one until you feel relaxed. Exercise is also a good stress reliever. Classical or soothing music also works. One way you can tell if it's soothing or not is if the beat of the music is generally less than about 70 beats per minute. A normal heart rate is around 70. So if you get higher than that, you're just exciting yourself. Tears are also a stress relief. Tears remove some of the stress chemicals. And we can change our thoughts, or we can distract ourselves to find some stress relief. Now let's look at some ways that we can reduce the amount of stress that we have. We can stop blaming others. We can own our own behavior. A part of that would be expressing or clarifying our emotions and our frustrations, but we need to do it in a constructive, non-aggressive way. That would be one way of eliminating anger and aggression. I mentioned before in the relief section that we can change our thoughts. We can also work at changing our thinking patterns. This is more to reduce stress, not just relieve it. Humor actually works in all of the levels, but best here. We can use time management. We can set goals and create schedules for ourselves, which reduces stress. Assertiveness, speaking our mind non-aggressively, reduces stress. Having hobbies, following our bliss, also reduces our stress. There's another group of things that happen that that create stress reduction, and that is finding friends or finding support groups, keeping a journal, writing about what happened during each day, taking time to ponder, to be with yourself. Sometimes people call that meditation, maybe a little different than pondering. Positive emotions reverse the effects of stress. So the more positive emotions you can have, the less stress you have. And finally, let's look at stress elimination. Forgiveness. I've covered the topic of forgiveness in a different module. You might want to look at it. In other words, stop blaming others for your behavior and your feelings. Having a self-healing personality is a way to eliminate stress. A self-healing personality is one in which you have a sense of meaning and purpose in your life. You have good connections with other people, and you're able to create mastery or a sense of competence. You have a sense of control over your own self. Another way to eliminate stress is to have a heart at peace. What that means is that you see other people as people with problems and wants just as you have. People are not objects, they're not obstacles, and they're not inferior. If you look for the positive intent in others' behavior, you tend to see them in a different way, and your heart can remain at peace. Offense is meant much less than it is taken. Having a heart at peace is more about acceptance and non-judgment. Other ways to eliminate stress, or even eliminate means to be at a point where you don't perceive things as stressful. And one of those is participating in mindfulness activities. And as I mentioned, pondering, meditation, or in other words, learning how to focus your mind. Frequent acts of kindness also reduce stress. Frequently examining your beliefs. Once again, creating positive emotion. Optimism is a stress elimination behavior. Looking for the positive in situations, or what can I learn from this situation? Or seeing life as a series of challenges, not problems. Those are all part of optimism. During the next week or two or three, keep a paper and a pen handy and note when you feel stressed. How do you respond to the stress? What are you thinking about the other person? And then try to add one of these stress resilient behaviors into your life. Either stress relief, stress management, or stress elimination.